The massive screen inside Earth's Global Defense Center flashed red. Captain James Miller stood frozen, his coffee cup halfway to his lips, as he stared at the readings. Hundreds of objects, larger than anything humanity had ever built, were approaching the solar system at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. "Sir," his sensor operator spoke up, voice trembling. "The objects just passed Jupiter's orbit. They're slowing down." Miller placed his cup down and pressed the emergency alert button. Within minutes, the command center filled with military personnel and civilian leaders. Admiral Kate Wilson, head of Earth's combined space forces, stepped forward to take charge. "Report, Captain Miller," she ordered, her eyes fixed on the main screen. "Ma'am, we detected the fleet 30 minutes ago. They're using some kind of propulsion we've never seen before. Size estimates suggest their smallest ship is bigger than our largest space station." The room fell silent. Humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel just 5 years ago, and they thought they were alone in their corner of the galaxy. They were wrong. Admiral Wilson turned to face the gathered leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems first contact is upon us, but I don't like that they're coming in with a fleet this size." The president of the United Earth Council, Robert Banks, nodded grimly. "Activate the defense grid, but keep weapons powered down. We don't want to appear hostile if they're peaceful." As the orders went out, more data streamed in. The alien fleet had taken up position just beyond Mars' orbit. Their formation was precise, military-like, suggesting this wasn't a casual visit. Then came the transmission. It burst through every communication channel on Earth, overwhelming their systems with its power. The message was in perfect English, which worried the leaders even more. It meant they had been studying Earth for some time. "People of Earth," the voice boomed through speakers worldwide. "This is High Commander Marcus of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. Your world has been chosen for incorporation into the Empire. Prepare to receive our representatives. Resistance is inadvisable." The message repeated in every major language on Earth. President Banks looked at his military advisors. "Options." General David Thompson, head of ground forces, stepped forward. "Our orbital defense platforms are ready. The lunar bases are fully armed. But, sir, we have no idea what kind of weapons they have." "What we do have," Admiral Wilson interrupted, "is Project Shield." The room grew tense. Project Shield was Earth's most closely guarded secret, a defensive system that could theoretically protect the entire planet. It had never been tested in real combat. "We should hear them out first," suggested Dr. Anna Peters, the chief scientist. "Their technology level is clearly advanced. We might learn something." President Banks nodded slowly. "Agreed. But we'll do it from a position of strength." He turned to his communication officer. "Send this message. This is President Banks of the United Earth Council. We acknowledge your presence and will meet with your representatives. However, any unauthorized approach to Earth will be considered a hostile act. We will provide coordinates for a neutral meeting point near Luna Base." The response came almost immediately. "Acceptable. Our diplomatic vessel will arrive at your coordinates in 6 Earth hours. Prepare for inspection and integration procedures." The arrogance in the message made several council members bristle. "Inspection," General Thompson growled. "They're treating us like a colony already. Let them think what they want," President Banks replied. "Admiral Wilson, I want Project Shield ready to activate at a moment's notice." General Thompson, put all forces on high alert, but keep it subtle. Dr. Peters, analyze every bit of data we can get from their ships. If they want to inspect us, we'll be doing some inspecting of our own. As the leaders dispersed to their duties, Captain Miller returned to his monitoring station. The alien ships hadn't moved, but their presence felt like a weight pressing down on Earth. He looked at the tactical display, where hundreds of red dots represented the Imperial fleet. Their smallest ship could probably level a city. But humans had faced impossible odds before. They had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and their own near destruction of Earth's climate. They had reached the stars through sheer determination and ingenuity. Whatever these Imperial visitors had planned, humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. The next 6 hours would change Earth forever. The question was, would it be for better or worse? The Imperial diplomatic vessel approached Luna Base exactly on schedule. It was smaller than the warships, but still dwarfed Earth's largest spacecraft. The ship's silver hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it appear like a hole in space. The meeting chamber inside Luna Base had been prepared with careful attention to diplomatic protocol. President Banks sat at the center of the Earth delegation, flanked by Admiral Wilson and Dr. Peters. Armed guards stood discreetly along the walls, their weapons holstered but ready. The Imperial representatives entered with a flourish of elaborate robes. Their leader appeared completely human, which caught the Earth delegation off guard. He introduced himself as Ambassador Thomas, explaining that his appearance was engineered to put Earth's leaders at ease. "We find that primitive species respond better to familiar forms," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It reduces the shock of integration into the Empire." President Banks kept his expression neutral, but his hands tightened beneath the table. "We appreciate the courtesy, Ambassador. However, I must object to the term primitive." Thomas waved his hand dismissively. "You've barely achieved basic faster-than-light travel. Your technology is centuries behind Imperial standards. These are simply facts, not insults." Dr. Peters leaned forward. "Perhaps you could elaborate on these standards. We're quite interested in understanding where we stand." The ambassador's artificial smile widened. "Of course. The Empire spans 10,000 worlds. We have ships that can cross the galaxy in weeks. We have automated systems that can terraform planets in months. We have weapons that could reduce your world to atoms." "Impressive capabilities," Admiral Wilson commented dryly. "Yet you feel the need to threaten us with them." "Not threats, Admiral. Warnings. The Empire maintains peace through strength. All member worlds contribute resources and manpower to the greater good. In return, they receive protection and access to Imperial technology." As the ambassador spoke, Dr. Peters' tablet quietly analyzed his biological readings. Despite his human appearance, subtle differences in body temperature and electromagnetic output revealed his artificial nature. More importantly, the analysis suggested his body was decades-old, outdated technology trying to appear cutting-edge. President Banks noticed something else. The ambassador's repeated emphasis on Imperial power felt rehearsed, almost desperate, like a bully trying to convince others of his strength. "What exactly would Earth's contribution be?" Banks asked. "Your world has abundant resources, rare metals, biological diversity, and of course, human workers. Your species has shown remarkable adaptability. The Empire has many uses for such traits." Admiral Wilson's eyes narrowed. "You mean slaves?" "Workers," Thomas corrected smoothly, "who would be well treated and given opportunities to advance, within appropriate limits, of course." During the conversation, Earth's hidden sensors gathered data on the Imperial ship. Its energy readings were massive but inefficient. The technology was impressive but showed signs of being mass-produced rather than innovative. "We'll need time to consider your offer," President Banks said carefully. The ambassador's smile vanished. "You have 24 Earth hours to accept Imperial authority. After that, we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of defiance." After the Imperial delegation departed, the Earth leaders gathered in a secure room. "Their technology is advanced," Dr. Peters reported, "but it's stagnant. They're using the same designs they probably developed centuries ago. No innovation, no improvements. Their ships are powerful," Admiral Wilson added, "but their tactics are textbook. They rely on overwhelming force rather than strategy." President Banks stood at the window, watching the Imperial ship depart. "They're not here to help us advance. They're here because they're afraid we will advance too far." "Project Shield is ready," Admiral Wilson said quietly, "and we've detected weaknesses in their defense systems. They're not as invincible as they want us to believe. The president turned to face his advisors. They expect us to either submit out of fear or resist and be crushed. They don't expect us to have any real defensive capabilities. He smiled grimly. I think it's time we showed them how primitive we really are. The next few hours would determine Earth's fate, but humanity had no intention of becoming just another resource for an empire that had forgotten how to evolve. The game was about to change, and the empire didn't even know it was playing. The United Earth Council chamber hummed with tension. Representatives from every nation sat around the massive circular table, their faces illuminated by holographic displays showing the Imperial fleet's positions. The 24-hour deadline was halfway expired. President Banks stood at the podium, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. We've analyzed all available data on the Empire. Dr. Peters, please share your findings. Dr. Peters activated the main display, showing detailed scans of the Imperial ships. Their technology is impressive, but fundamentally flawed. They've been using the same designs for centuries. No improvements, no innovations. It's like they forgot how to invent. She switched to new images. More importantly, we've detected serious power inefficiencies in their shields. They compensate with brute force, using enormous amounts of energy to maintain basic protection. Admiral Wilson took over. Their tactical doctrine is equally rigid. Standard formations, predictable responses. They rely on overwhelming force rather than adaptation. In the simulator, our AI systems found multiple weaknesses in their approach. The room erupted in discussion. President Banks raised his hand for silence. We face a choice: submit to imperial rule or fight for our independence. Before we vote, you should know that Project Shield is fully operational. The holographic display changed to show Earth's hidden defense system. Thousands of satellites, invisible to standard scans, formed an interconnected web around the planet. Each contained revolutionary shield technology that could link together, creating a protective barrier beyond anything the Empire had demonstrated. For the past decade, Banks continued, we've been preparing for possible hostile contact. The Empire thinks we're primitive because we showed them what they expected to see. They don't know about our quantum computing breakthroughs, our adaptive AI systems, or our advanced shield technology. General Thompson stepped forward. Our weapons may be less powerful, but they're more precise. Our ships are smaller, but they're faster and more maneuverable. Most importantly, our people are innovative. We adapt. We improvise. The Empire has forgotten how to do both. The council members listened intently as military and scientific leaders presented their assessment. Earth's chances weren't perfect, but they were better than the Empire suspected. They've given us 24 hours to surrender, President Banks said. I propose we give them our answer now. Not just a rejection of their authority, but a complete ban on their presence in our solar system. The vote was unanimous. Within minutes, Ambassador Thomas appeared on the emergency channel, his artificial features showing the first signs of genuine emotion, confusion. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. You can't ban the Empire. We are the supreme authority in this galaxy. President Banks stood before the camera, the entire council behind him. Ambassador Thomas, by unanimous decision of the United Earth Council, your empire is hereby banned from Earth and the entire solar system. You have 6 hours to withdraw your forces beyond Pluto's orbit. Thomas's face contorted with rage. This is absurd. You have no power to make such demands. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. That's where you're wrong, Admiral Wilson interrupted. We're not primitive. We're just different. And if you force us to demonstrate this difference, you won't like the results. This is your final warning, Thomas snarled. Submit or be destroyed. No, Ambassador, Banks replied calmly. This is your final warning. Leave our system, or discover exactly how primitive we aren't. The choice is yours. The transmission cut off. On the tactical displays, the Imperial fleet began moving, but not toward Pluto. They were advancing toward Earth. "They're calling our bluff," General Thompson observed. "Activate Project Shield," President Banks ordered. "All stations to battle positions. Let's show the Empire why you should never underestimate humanity." As alert sirens sounded across Earth and its colonies, millions of people looked to the sky. The Empire thought they were facing a primitive species that would either submit or be easily crushed. They were about to learn that humanity had moved beyond primitive long ago. They just hadn't felt the need to brag about it. The next few hours would teach the Empire a lesson about judging species by their apparent technology level. It would be a lesson they wouldn't forget. The Imperial fleet approached Earth in perfect formation, their massive ships blocking out the stars. In the Global Defense Center, Captain Miller watched as thousands of enemy vessels moved into attack position. "They're launching fighters," he reported. "Estimated 20,000 small craft in the first wave." Admiral Wilson nodded calmly. "Let them come a bit closer. Wait for my signal." The Imperial ships pressed forward, their confidence evident in their aggressive approach. They had conquered thousands of worlds with these same tactics. Earth's defiance would end like all the others. Then Admiral Wilson smiled. "Activate Project Shield. All units, execute Operation Thunderbolt." The space around Earth shimmered as thousands of hidden satellites activated simultaneously. A web of energy formed, not just a simple barrier, but an intricate network of overlapping fields. The Imperial fleet's first volley of energy weapons splashed harmlessly against it, shield holding at 98% capacity. Dr. Peters announced. "The Empire's weapons are powerful, but unfocused. They're wasting energy." Ambassador Thomas's face appeared on the main screen, his artificial features twisted with fury. "What is this? Your technology level shouldn't allow for such defenses." "You assumed," Admiral Wilson replied. "That was your first mistake." She gave the signal. Earth's defense grid came alive. Hundreds of small, stealthy ships emerged from hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. Unlike the Empire's bulky fighters, these vessels were sleek, fast, and piloted by a combination of humans and advanced AI. The Imperial fleet's rigid formation suddenly became a disadvantage. Earth's ships darted between the larger vessels, their precise weapons targeting weak points that the Empire's engineers had never bothered to fix. Why improve designs that had worked for centuries? "Enemy shields failing on multiple vessels," Miller reported. "Their response times are slow. They're following standard protocols instead of adapting." The Empire's fighters moved to intercept, but they were fighting an enemy that didn't behave as expected. Earth's AI systems predicted their standardized tactics and countered them before they could execute. It was like playing chess against someone who only knew one opening move. "Imperial command ship is signaling," a communications officer announced. "You dare." Thomas appeared again, his composure completely gone. "You primitive. You cannot. This is impossible." "No," President Banks replied from his secure command center. "This is humanity. We've been primitive. We've been conquered before, by our own kind. We learned. We adapted. We evolved. Your Empire forgot how." On the tactical display, the Imperial fleet's perfect formation had dissolved into chaos. Their massive ships, designed to intimidate through size and power, became obstacles to each other. Earth's smaller vessels slipped through their disorganized defenses, disabling key systems with surgical precision. "They're targeting our satellite network," Dr. Peters warned. "Activate Phase 2, Admiral Wilson ordered." The shield network suddenly shifted, its energy patterns changing in ways the Empire's sensors couldn't track. Their targeting computers, designed for predictable energy signatures, couldn't lock onto the dynamic defense grid. "Imperial vessels are withdrawing," Miller announced. 40% of their fleet has sustained significant damage. They're falling back beyond the Moon's orbit. The retreat wasn't graceful. The Empire's ships, so impressive in their advance, now scrambled to escape the unexpected resistance. Several collided in their haste, their coordinated movements breaking down under pressure. "Should we pursue?" General Thompson asked. President Banks shook his head. "No, let them run. We've made our point. The galaxy will soon know that Earth isn't just another primitive world to be conquered." Ambassador Thomas made one final transmission. This changes nothing. The Empire will return with a proper invasion fleet. You will regret this defiance." Admiral Wilson cut the transmission. "Their proper invasion fleet will find us even better prepared. Humanity learns from every encounter. Can the Empire say the same?" As the Imperial ships disappeared into deep space, cheers erupted in command centers across Earth. But the leaders knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would return, probably with reinforcements. But they would find a different Earth waiting for them. Humanity had revealed only a fraction of its capabilities. The Empire thought they had seen everything in this battle. They hadn't seen anything yet, because while the Empire's ships fled, Earth's scientists and engineers were already studying the battle data, finding ways to improve their systems. That was the true power of humanity, the ability to learn, adapt, and evolve. The Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating primitive species. 1 month after Earth's victory, the Global Defense Center buzzed with unexpected activity. Encrypted transmissions were pouring in from across the galaxy, not from the Empire, but from its supposedly loyal subjects. Another message from the Centauri colonies. Captain Miller reported, "They want to know how we defeated the Imperial fleet." Admiral Wilson studied the flood of incoming communications. After news of Earth's success spread, subjugated worlds began reaching out in secret. The Empire's iron grip wasn't as strong as it appeared. "Look at this," Dr. Peters called out, her eyes fixed on her data screen. "We've decoded some Imperial technical documents. The Empire hasn't developed any new technology in over 300 years. They just keep building the same designs bigger." President Banks leaned over her shoulder, scanning the information. "They're not just stagnant. They're actively suppressing innovation. Any world that develops new technology is immediately invaded and harvested." The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. The Empire wasn't just conquering worlds, it was preventing them from advancing beyond a certain point. "We've got a priority transmission," Miller announced. "It's from the Proxima system. Their resistance movement wants to share information." The main screen lit up with the image of a being that looked like a blend of crystal and organic matter. "Greetings, Earth Defenders. I am First Speaker Ray of the Proxima Liberation Front. We've been fighting the Empire in secret for decades. Why contact us now?" Admiral Wilson asked. "Because you did what we thought impossible. You stood up to them and won. More importantly, you exposed their greatest weakness, fear of change." Ray's crystalline form shimmed as he transmitted data. The Empire's founders were paranoid about losing control. They standardized everything: technology, culture, even thought patterns. Any deviation was crushed. But in doing so, they engineered their own downfall. Dr. Peters analyzed the incoming data. "These are Imperial military protocols, construction standards, command hierarchies. They haven't changed in centuries." "Exactly," Ray confirmed. "They can't change. Their entire society is built on the idea that their way is perfect and unchangeable. When faced with something new, they can only respond with pre-programmed behaviors." President Banks understood immediately. That's why they call us primitive. Anything different from their standard had to be inferior. They couldn't conceive of advancement taking a different path. More transmissions arrived from other systems. Each told a similar story. Worlds rich in culture and innovation, forced to hide their achievements or face destruction. The Empire hadn't brought civilization to the galaxy. It had frozen it in time. "There's more," Ray continued. "Several Imperial garrison fleets have already been quietly replaced with holographic projections. The Empire is spread too thin to check every system constantly. They rely on fear to maintain control." Admiral Wilson's eyes narrowed. "How many systems are ready to break away?" Hundreds. We just needed proof it was possible. Earth didn't just defeat an Imperial fleet. You shattered the myth of their invincibility. The implications were staggering. Earth hadn't just defended itself. It had unknowingly sparked a galaxy-wide revolution. We need to be careful, President Banks warned. The Empire will respond with overwhelming force once they realize the extent of this rebellion. They'll try, Ray agreed, but their response will be predictable. They only know one way to fight. We've been studying their patterns for centuries, with Earth's innovative tactics and our combined knowledge. The transmission suddenly cut off as alarms blared. Captain Miller jumped to his station. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But they're not Imperial designs. The new vessels were smaller, sleeker, clearly built for speed and maneuverability. They carried markings from a dozen different systems. Ray's transmission resumed. Sorry for the surprise. These are just the first of many. Resistance fighters, scientists, engineers, all ready to join forces with Earth. The Empire thought they could keep us isolated and afraid. Instead, they gave us a common enemy and centuries to prepare. President Banks looked at his advisors. What had started as a simple defense of Earth had become something much larger. Humanity's stand against the Empire had shattered chains that had bound the galaxy for centuries. The real revolution was just beginning. And this time, change itself was the most powerful weapon. The Luna Base Conference Chamber, once used for Earth's first contact with the Empire, now hosted representatives from 50 star systems. The room hummed with different languages and translation devices as species from across the galaxy gathered. President Banks stood at the podium, looking out at the diverse assembly. Crystalline beings from Proxima sat next to ethereal energy forms from the Vega system. Humanoid species mixed with those that defied easy description. All shared one thing, a desire for freedom. 3 months ago, Earth stood alone against the Empire. Banks began. Today, we stand together, not just to fight, but to build something new. The hall erupted in approval. Over the past weeks, ships carrying resistance fighters and refugees had poured into the solar system. Each brought technology and knowledge hidden from the Empire for centuries. Admiral Wilson stepped forward with a military briefing. The Empire has lost control of 30 systems already. Their response times are getting slower. They can't adapt to fighting multiple rebellions using different tactics. On the main display, a map showed Imperial forces trying to maintain order. Their rigid battle formations, once intimidating, now looked outdated and vulnerable. Their entire command structure depends on standardized responses, Ray from Proxima explained. When every system fights differently, they can't coordinate effectively. Dr. Peters presented next, showing the results of combining technologies from multiple worlds. We've improved Project SHIELD by incorporating Proximan crystal matrices. Vegan energy manipulation has revolutionized our propulsion systems. But most importantly, we're all learning from each other. That was the key difference between the Alliance and the Empire. Where Imperial worlds were forced to use identical technology, Alliance members combined their unique developments. Innovation flourished as centuries of hidden advances were finally shared. Imperial shipyards in the Orion sector have fallen, reported Captain Miller. Their own workers sabotaged the standardized security systems. They're requesting Alliance membership. More systems declared independence daily. The Empire's practice of using identical defenses everywhere had become its greatest weakness. Once rebels learned to breach one system, they could breach them all. We've intercepted Imperial communications, a vegan representative announced, their form glowing with excitement. Their leadership is in chaos. They've never faced a coordinated rebellion before, let alone one using superior technology. President Banks raised his hand for attention. But we can't become overconfident. The Empire still controls vast resources. They'll sacrifice anything to maintain control. Let them try, Ray responded. Every failed attack shows more worlds that they're not invincible. Their own rigid thinking traps them. The Assembly moved to formally establish the Free Systems Alliance. Unlike the Empire's forced uniformity, the Alliance celebrated diversity. Each member world maintained its unique culture while contributing to the common defense. Earth, as the catalyst for revolution, was offered leadership of the Alliance. President Banks declined. "We don't need a new empire with a different name," he explained. "We need a true alliance of equals. Every world gets one vote. Every voice matters." The proposal passed unanimously. Immediately, working groups formed to coordinate defense, share technology, and establish trade. Centuries of isolation ended as species learned from each other openly. Imperial fleet detected. Captain Miller announced suddenly. Largest formation yet. At least 3,000 capital ships. The assembly didn't panic. Instead, representatives quickly coordinated their responses. Vegan energy ships would disrupt Imperial communications. Proximan crystal vessels would enhance Alliance shields. Earth's adaptive AI would coordinate the combined fleet's tactics. They still think size and power alone bring victory. Admiral Wilson observed. They haven't learned. They can't learn, Ray said. That's why we'll win. Not just because we're stronger, but because we can change and grow. As Alliance ships moved to defensive positions, President Banks watched the tactical display. The Empire's massive fleet approached in the same formation they'd used for centuries. Their weapons were powerful, their ships enormous. But they were facing something they couldn't understand. Worlds working together while remaining unique. Species sharing knowledge while celebrating differences. An alliance built on innovation rather than conformity. The Empire had spent centuries trying to prevent change. Now change itself would be their downfall. The real battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin. The view from Earth's orbital diplomatic station showed a galaxy transformed. 1 year after the formation of the Free Systems Alliance, merchant ships from 100 worlds moved freely through space, once dominated by Imperial patrols. President Banks stood with Admiral Wilson and Dr. Peters, watching an Imperial diplomatic vessel approach. Unlike the massive ship that had first contacted Earth, this one was small and unescorted. "How times have changed," Admiral Wilson remarked. "A year ago, they demanded our surrender. Now they're here to negotiate peace." The Imperial delegation wasn't led by an artificial human this time. Instead, a genuine Imperial citizen, Ambassador Mark, entered the chamber. His species' true form was surprisingly delicate, tall and graceful, with iridescent skin. "The Empire," he began, then corrected himself. "The Imperial Council acknowledges the sovereignty of the Free Systems Alliance. We seek terms for peaceful coexistence." President Banks nodded. "Your empire now controls only 20% of its former territory. The rest has joined the Alliance or declared independence." "Yes," Mark admitted. "Our inflexibility proved our undoing. We thought uniformity meant strength. We were wrong. The peace terms were straightforward. The Empire would recognize all independent systems and Alliance members. In return, they would be allowed to maintain control of worlds that freely chose to remain under Imperial rule. There's one more condition," Banks added. "The Empire must abandon its policy of technological suppression. All worlds must be free to develop at their own pace." Mark hesitated, then agreed. The Empire had no choice. Their defensive systems, unchanged for centuries, couldn't match Alliance technology. Their rigid tactics failed against adaptive strategies. As the Imperial delegation departed, Dr. Peters shared the latest Alliance achievements. Combined research teams have made incredible breakthroughs. Vegan energy principles merged with Earth's quantum computing. Proximan crystal technology enhanced by dozens of new applications. "And the no-entry policy?" Admiral Wilson asked. Banks smiled. "Remains in effect for Imperial military vessels. Some lessons shouldn't be forgotten." The station's observation deck offered a perfect view of Alliance ships in orbit. Each design was unique, reflecting its builder's culture while incorporating shared advances. Unity through diversity had proved stronger than forced uniformity. Captain Miller's voice came over the comm. Sir, we're receiving reports from across Alliance space. Celebrations everywhere. The war is officially over. The news spread quickly. On Earth, crowds gathered in cities worldwide. Similar scenes play out on 1,000 worlds. Species that had lived in fear for centuries could finally build their own futures. The Empire's greatest mistake, Dr. Peters observed, was thinking progress could be controlled. They tried to freeze the galaxy in time and created the conditions for their own defeat. Wilson added, while they stayed the same, everyone else kept learning and growing in secret. Banks watched an Alliance trade fleet depart for newly independent worlds. Ships of different designs moved in perfect coordination, their crews working together despite vast differences in biology and culture. We should thank Ambassador Thomas, Banks mused. His arrogance in that first meeting showed us exactly what we were fighting against. The belief that different meant inferior. The Alliance had proved the opposite. Different meant innovative. Different meant adaptive. Different meant strong. Earth maintained its reputation as the world that said no to an empire, but it became known for something more important, showing that resistance wasn't enough. You had to build something better. The new era brought challenges. Some worlds struggled with sudden freedom. Others had to overcome centuries of forced isolation. But they faced these challenges together, sharing knowledge while respecting each other's unique paths. The Empire's remnant began to change, forced to innovate to survive. Some predicted they would eventually join the Alliance once they learned that true strength came from embracing change rather than fearing it. As the celebration continued, President Banks drafted a message to all Alliance worlds. Today marks not just the end of a war, but the beginning of a new way. We proved that unity doesn't require uniformity, that progress can't be contained, that the future belongs to those who dare to be different. The galaxy had learned what Earth knew all along, that saying no to tyranny was just the first step. The real victory was in building a future where every world could say yes to its own path forward. A new era had begun, and this time, change itself was the foundation.